All right, let's get into our running back.
That's why you're here. You need help after these injuries, or the spam calls. You just need help in general. It's waiver wire day. Let's start with the running backs here, and we got to talk about this Chiefs backfield, Matthew. Samaje Perine, 95% available. Carson Steele, 96% available. Kareem Hunt will visit with the Chiefs today. This is messy right here if you dive into this group.
We talked about it yesterday as well, but just in case you missed yesterday's show, I believe they are not going to replace Isiah Pacheco with one person. They're just not going to. He's a special player. He had earned the trust of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, and so the other guys that are left there, and this is going to get even muddier when Clyde Edwards-Helaire comes back. My expectation here is that it's going to be a running back by committee. It's going to be a hot hand approach, if you will. And if Kareem Hunt gets signed, it gets even messier. But there is going to be some value, just not as much. It's not going to be a one-for-one Isiah Pacheco replacement. I prefer Samaje Perine to Carson Steele. I think both have value moving forward as long as Pacheco is out. And, again, we'll see what happens with Hunter, CEH when he comes up. But at the moment, I think both Perine and Steele have value in that order. Here's my argument is that Perine is more to the veteran. He's a better pass protector. He's a better pass catcher. And this is a team that is going to be more pass heavy, generally speaking. So I think Perine is just going to play more snaps. As we look at, sort of overall game scripts for the Chiefs, I just think Perine is going to be out there more. And for PPR leagues or even half PPR leagues, he's got a better chance to get you fantasy points week in, week out. I think the early down work is probably split between Carson Steele and Samaje Perine. There's a chance that Carson Steele gets the goal line work, although, again, bad fumble against the Bengals, so they may not trust him. I mean, Perine is a trusted veteran who wasn't he the guy that famously hadn't fumbled in 4 years or something like that? Perine, I feel like I have that. Big Show, look that up for me. But I feel like there was some crazy stat about Perine had never fumbled in the NFL or something like that for his first.
Zach Taylor had Perine out there with the Super Bowl on the line,
right,
for the final play against Aaron Donald. So
yes. Which was a mistake. It should have been Joe Mixon. But the fact of the matter,
we don't talk about that.
Bengals lost that Super Bowl.
Yes, and it should have been Joe Mixon on that particular play. But I'm just saying, you've got Carson Steele, who was an undrafted free agent.
Yeah, to UCLA, once upon a time, Ball State. Listen, when
great story, had a nice preseason.
Yeah, and this is a guy who wasn't invited to the combine. It's a long shot for him to be on this roster. But you bring up the fumble. He is a little bit one-dimensional right now. I think it will gear towards Perine. I would call Carson Steele touchdown dependent. Is what I would call him.
And they do. The Chiefs do so much weird stuff at the goal line, Jay. Right. In terms of the shovel passes to Kelsey and Noah Gray.
There's one named Morris.
Yeah, tackle eligible stuff. They just get so weird at the goal line. They do so much. Hey, Mecole Hardman, do a jet sweep and What'd you say?
Very freaky.
Catch
very freaky.
Catch the winning touchdown in the Super Bowl. Yeah. Even though you weren't even on this team a couple weeks ago.
I just, again, the idea that Carson Steele is going to be Derrick Henry, which is he's going to get at least one rushing touchdown right there, I don't think that's going to happen. I do think he'll have value. I do think both these guys should be picked up, but I rank them Perine and Carson Steele 1-2.
Yep. I think there's a natural inclination to be starting running back for the Chiefs for Patrick Mahomes. He's going to provide a ton of value. I'd implore people to look back to 2019 when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, and they didn't have a single running back have 500 rushing yards, and they have a single running back have over 111 carries. And it was guys like Damian Williams and Spencer Ware and LaShawn McCoy. I feel like we might be headed for a similar situation where it's just a mismatch of 5 different guys while Pacheco's out.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys like that in the Andy Reid history of coaching. There's a lot of guys like the Spencer Wares and Damian Williams of the world. Shout out Sharkandrick West, my personal favorite.
Right. Darwin Thompson?
Darwin Thompson, preseason darling Darwin Thompson, sure. But, Sharkandrick West was a thing for a moment in time. But, yeah, anyway. So that's how we rank them. But those, to me, would be the first 2 guys that I would pick up if you needed a running back for both this week and for the future.
Let's move over to the Texans backfield. We talked about this earlier. Joe Mixon, per longtime Texans beat reporter Aaron Wilson, it's not considered long-term or serious, but in the short term right now, Cam Akers, 99% available. Dameon Pierce, 95% available as they play at Minnesota this week, Matthew. Could one of these guys maybe help you on this short-term bind a lot of people are in?
Yeah, I think Cam Akers would be my choice here just because Dameon Pierce was brutal last year and brutal in the preseason.
Akers is a better scheme fit in this offense than Dameon Pierce.
Yes, and, again, we saw Cam Akers. Yes, he had the brutal fumble.
It's funny, like Akers was clearly the guy to replace Joe Mixon, and then after he fumbled at the goal line, and then all of a sudden,
Dario Gunbowale.
I thought, like, if I was pricing favorites or who was going to be on that final series, I thought Mixon might come back in because, like, well, you got to give it a go, Joe. And then otherwise, the Akers, no, it's Dario Gunbowale with the game on the line. So, look, I think Akers will get first crack at it again, but I mean, he's one fumble away from just possibly being off the team.
Yeah, I mean, Dari played 6 more snaps in that game. Akers out-touched him 8-4. We'll see if the fumble, but Akers is somebody who has had success in the NFL, and Dario Gunbowale is like, he's a guy, right? I mean, he's just a guy. He's a pass-catching guy is what he is. Akers, like, potentially, Akers, by the way, is a physical freak of nature. Like, right? 2 different Achilles injuries.
Yeah, and he came back in, 5 months?
Yeah, I mean,
months?
like,
it wasn't great when he came back, by the
but
way,
he came back.
But he did do it.
I mean, I'm just...
Yeah.
Anyway, here's what I would say, is that if I had Joe Mixon on my team, I would want to pick up Cam Akers. If I didn't have Joe Mixon, I would want to use that waiver claim on somebody else.
Yeah.
I don't think Cam Akers may have value this week to whoever rosters Joe Mixon. I don't think he has season-long standalone value unless this injury to Mixon turns out to be a lot worse. And I also don't think he's, going to be, amazing. I think there's better stashes season long and even for this week if you don't have Mixon and you're looking for help.
Yep. Joe Mixon, by the way, is also like a physical freak. Like that should be a month-long injury. In 2021, I think he had a high ankle sprain, just didn't miss any games at all. Like he plays through stuff.
Our next one here, guys, Braelon Allen on the Jets, 90% available for Thursday Night Football against the Patriots. Massive week, Matthew, for Braelon Allen.
And shout out to you, Connor, because we talked about this in the preseason, and I just remember us talking about Braelon Allen, like, oh, important insurance back for anyone that drafts Breece Hall, and you were like, he's going to have a role immediately. Yeah. You've been talking about throughout the preseason that he would immediately have a role in this offense, and we saw that come to fruition in week 2.
Right. The Jets don't have a lot of skill talent as Mike Williams is coming off the ACL. It's really Garrett Wilson and then Breece Hall. So one of their best skill players is Braelon Allen, even though he plays running back. And what they did in this game, not only did Breece get a little banged up early, but he came back and was fine. They used them on the field together, Matthew, which is it makes you kind of excited that Braelon Allen, listen, not a guy you want to start every single week,
right?
But he has some kind of role. He has a goal line role for sure because of his size and power, and Breece needs a breather. This team wants to run the ball, but they threw him the ball. He hadn't caught a touchdown, Matthew, since high school. 3-year starter at Wisconsin, but he catches his first touchdown since high school. It was a great design by Nathaniel Hackett. You won't hear me say those words very often this year. But Allen, if you have Breece Hall, you should be spending for Braelon Allen, but if you don't, he's still an interesting player.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got flex appeal in deeper leagues. You saw the 36% of the snaps in week 2 right there on your screen. And oh, by the way, success begets success. There's nothing about what he did in week 2 that's going to be like, oh, you know what, we should use this guy less.
Exactly.
They're going to, I heard a quote, I don't know if it was, I think it was Aaron Rodgers from the podium, Connor, where on his second touchdown, Braelon Allen just basically went into the huddle and said to Rodgers, like, hey, if they put a Packer on me, I'm just doing a backer. If they put a backer on me, I'm just doing a go route. And Rodgers was like, okay. And they put a backer on him. Braelon Allen ran a go route, and boom, he hits him in stride for the touchdown. It was a beautiful play.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Allen, he just has size that not a lot of running backs have, but he can move a little bit. And this team, it's a short week for the Jets, which makes it really interesting. If Breece was banged up on Sunday, it's a short week for the Jets. It's not going to be like this every week. I wouldn't be shocked if it's more 60-40 this week between them rather than the typical maybe 75-25.
I'll just say this very quickly, that, again, it all depends on your team needs as you approach waivers. Do I need some of this week?
Exactly.
Still reeling from losing Chris McCaffrey, or I lost Isiah Pacheco. Do you need someone this week, or you're just like, you know what? I'm good. So far I've gotten lucky. I've avoided the injury bug, and now I'm just looking for how can I fortify my team for down the stretch. If I'm in that situation, Braelon Allen I'd actually make Braelon Allen the number 1 priority because I think, again, as we've talked about, the Chiefs guys are committee guys. Mixon should be back soon. There's if something were to happen to Breece Hall, Braelon Allen is a league winner, right? And he's going to have standalone value. So again, if I'm looking I don't need anyone this week. I don't think any one of those Chiefs running backs emerges as the guy as a 1-for-1 replacement for Pacheco, but Braelon Allen would be if something were to happen to Hall.
As we get further down the list here, Jay, Cowboys' Rico Dowdle has Baltimore this week, available in 59% of leagues. After Baltimore does have the Giants on Thursday Night Football. Ooh. This team's not really effectively running the ball right now, but Dowdle gets touches.
Yeah, indeed. And to Matthew's point, like if you need someone for this week, well, Rico Dowdle is effectively a starting running back for the Dallas Cowboys. It's been very split with Zeke so far. Dowdle has 15 carries on the season. Zeke has 16. This is very much Pollard Zeke, the remix from 2 years ago, except Rico Dowdle, unfortunately, is not as good as 2022 Tony Pollard. But look, Rico Dowdle, he plays in what theoretically should be a really good offense, even if it hasn't shown that so much. And Baltimore, this Baltimore defense, not as scary as it was last year. Yeah. They gave up in the mid-20s to the Raiders. The Chiefs looked terrible against the Bengals, lit them up with explosives. Their run defense last year for Baltimore wasn't great. It's just that teams couldn't run the ball against them either because they were always behind. So I think there is a little bit of upside for Rico Dowdle. And again, he's like the definitional flex guy if you need, who can maybe get you 10 points. Rico Dowdle's an option.
Can I, last week you posed the question, what if the Saints are actually good? What if the Ravens are actually bad?
Their defense isn't good.
I mean, right? I mean, like, isn't that a possibility that just the Ravens just might? I mean, like,
last week
I think John
scary.
Harbaugh. Yeah. I think John Harbaugh is one of the best coaches in the NFL, year in, year out. He's always fantastic, and so, maybe like Mike Tomlin, like he just sort of wills his team to, be competitive even when. But maybe the Ravens are just. Maybe the luck is sort of. I don't want to say luck, but maybe just that. They've just run out. You know what I mean? Like maybe they're just bad.
Yeah, I think. Look. They still have Lamar Jackson, who's a top 5 quarterback, and I think the defense will be solid enough. Like, they still have a lot of great pieces on defense, but they
especially
lost
in their
a lot
secondary.
Of guys. They lost
Kyle
a lot
Hamilton's
of guys.
legit.
Roquan Smith is a top 3 linebacker in the sport. So I think that they will figure it out. But, I mean, this could very well be more like a 9-8 type of team as opposed to the 13-4 1 seed they were last year.
Well, look what Mike McDonald is doing right now for Seattle. That's a big loss. Sometimes we don't quantify assistant coaching losses enough until it's 3 or 4 or 5 weeks into the season.
Think about last year with Philadelphia. I mean, with Gannon and Steichen both moving on, the Eagles were a mess last year.
We were like, whoa, how did this happen? And then you're like, well, a lot of people are gone behind the scenes, not on the field.
For sure.
So that could happen with Baltimore. Some deep league running back waiver targets here. How about Ty Chandler, available in 71% of leagues? Deontay Foreman against the Giants, 99% available. And Bucky Irving, we bring it up again. Bucky Irving has the Broncos, 66% available here, Matthew.
Broncos, Eagles, Falcons, then the Saints. But again, similar to Braelon Allen, Bucky Irving already has a role in this offense. Rashad White got a little bit banged up before. Bucky Irving would be a true 3-down back if anything were to happen to Rashad White, and I think he's already got a role. Foreman is a grinder, after being released and then re-signed in the preseason and doing nothing in week 1. He actually led the Browns backfield with 15 touches in week 2. Jerome Ford only had 8. And they play the Giants this week. So I do think if you're sort of desperate for like a touchdown-dependent flex type guy, Foreman is actually viable this week against the G-Men. Ty Chandler, of course, getting used more than I think people thought. Vikings offense better than people thought. Aaron Jones, we love Aaron Jones, but, injury prone.
How about some notable insurance running backs as well here, Jay? I mean, we talked about this with Blake Corum. He's somebody that, listen, you're not going to get a lot of production out of right away, but you want to have him if you have Kyron Williams. Ray Davis getting some early work. Trey Benson, we know the kind of volume James Conner holds in this offense, and Trey Benson being the backup there. And then eventually Marshawn Lloyd for Green Bay. Yeah,
Trey Benson might be the most compelling one to me, given that he is the clear backup to James Conner. And the main thing here is that James Conner's never played a full season in his entire career. He's missed 4 games each of the last 2 years. We love James Conner, but we only love him when he's out on the field, and he does tend to miss time. And that sneakily is an awesome fantasy situation to be the lead back in that backfield because of how efficient they can be with Kyler Murray taking a man out of the box. And they just looked incredible on the weekend. So Trey Benson is worth having on your bench as a stash.
Let's recap Matthew's Week 3 top running back waiver targets, and we start with the Kansas City guys at the top and Perine and Steele. Braelon Allen at 3, though. But like you said, Matthew, it is roster specific. There's some players that, hey, Braelon Allen could be your top guy. Maybe you need somebody in a pinch this week for Thursday Night Football. Rico Dowdle, Bucky Irving, Ty Chandler, both Texans, as we get more word on Joe Mixon's status. So Cam Akers and Dameon Pierce on this list. And then we just talked about Deontay Foreman against the Giants.
Yeah, exactly right. So you see it there. Again, it's sort of look at your roster, figure out what you need in whether it's this week or for the rest of the season as well. But that's the order we have it. Them, all of them available more than 50% of Yahoo Leagues. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest RotoWorld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.